Hello, you're listening to Hugo Talks. So the entity that is known as Matt Hancock graced us with his smarmy demeanour at a briefing tonight, and he said a couple of things that I felt that needed a little bit more focusing on. So one of the questions posed was this.
Next question is from Josh from Newcastle. And the question is, how much would it matter if there were a high surge of cases amongst young people if vulnerable groups were protected by the vaccine? Well, thank you for this question. It is incredibly important, and it's one that we think hard about. The most difficult question that we don't yet have an answer to is how much the vaccine protects the most vulnerable groups, not just from catching COVID, but also from serious disease and the degree of transmission that you get from people who have caught COVID.
Okay, now, did you hear that? That's a lot of stuff he doesn't know when it comes to the result of the jab. Now, I know they've said before it doesn't stop you getting it, it doesn't stop you transmitting it, but it's supposed to be 95% effective at diminishing symptoms, is it not? Let's hear that again.
The most difficult question that we don't yet have an answer to is how much the vaccine protects the most vulnerable groups, not just from catching COVID, but also from serious disease.
He doesn't know if it stops you catching it, doesn't know if it stops you from getting serious disease from it. Surely that's where he should be saying it's 95% effective at reducing symptoms, right? But no, he says he doesn't know.
And the degree of transmission that you get from people who have caught COVID. But of course, it's not just the most vulnerable, those in the top four priority groups who...
Look at his face here. That reaction is due to his brain overheating, because what he says next is somewhat confusing.
But of course, it's not just the most vulnerable, those in the top four priority groups who do consist of the vast majority of deaths, 88% of deaths. But for hospitalizations, younger people are more likely than that to end up in hospital.
So, am I hearing right? Did he just say that young people are more likely to end up in hospital than those in vulnerable groups?
It's not just the most vulnerable, those in the top four priority groups who do consist of the vast majority of deaths, 88% of deaths. But for hospitalizations, younger people are more likely than that to end up in hospital. And so it is a very careful calibration that we have to work on.
I did hear right. He says younger people are more likely to end up in hospital than that, the vulnerable older age group. Well, that's not correct. What is he talking about? There have been reports recently that state that there are more different age groups that have been admitted to hospital, but they are still a very small percentage. So that needs correcting. Then later on, he was asked another question about the rollout of the vaccine and Britain's involvement with this on a global international scale.
So I absolutely agree with Dr. Tedros on the importance of a global rollout, and we in the UK can be proud of what we are doing to support that happening financially. And I look forward to working with the World Health Organization and others, including in CEPI, COVAX and other organizations, to try to make sure that we get enough vaccine to be able to vaccinate the whole world, and certainly the whole world's adult population.
So he wants to vaccinate the whole world. Yet minutes earlier, he said,
the most difficult question that we don't yet have an answer to is how much the vaccine protects the most vulnerable groups, not just from catching COVID, but also from serious disease and the degree of transmission that you get from people who have caught COVID.
So I don't know, I find it a bit of a conflict that 1 minute he is completely saying he doesn't know if it stops you getting it, doesn't know if it stops serious disease, he doesn't know if it stops transmission, but yet says
to be able to vaccinate the whole world.
You know, I'm not saying anything here. These are his words, not mine. Then we've got this question about summer holidays and when are the restrictions going to be reduced? When can we start getting our freedom back, Mr. Hancock?
Well, on the summer holidays, I'm going to Cornwall.
Ah, that's nice. A summer holiday in Cornwall, the home of Cornish pasties and poldark. I saw on Twitter many locals online were overjoyed at that idea.
I've said before, I think we're going to have a great British summer, but we've got a lot of work to do between now and then. And what we can do is see the line of sight to vaccinating everybody by September.
There he goes again, wants to jab everyone, and yet he doesn't know if it stops transmission, stops you getting it, or stops serious disease.
And anything before that would be a bonus. As the Foreign Secretary said yesterday, we're driving this as fast as we possibly can. On the lifting of restrictions, I might ask Susan to comment on this as well, but we've got to watch the data. And the Prime Minister, when he brought in the national lockdown, set out 4 considerations.
Okay, let's skip the first 3 considerations. 1, deaths got to go down. 2, NHS pressure reduced. 3, jab rollout needs to be working, even though he's admitted he doesn't know how that's going to turn out. Hey, don't know, but feck it, let's vaccinate the world. And then this is number 4.
And then the 4th consideration is that there isn't some other new variant, in the same way that in December we discovered the new variant that caused so many difficulties and meant that the old 3-tiered system ceased to work. We monitor all the time for new variants, and as you know, we've taken very significant and rapid action to protect Britain from new variants that are spotted.
So there needs to be no other new variant of the virus. If there are new variants, then lockdown restrictions will continue. Now, the facts that all scientists agree on state that viruses, as it says here on the BBC website explaining virus strains, I'm using BBC here as we are dealing with the UK government, okay? It says all viruses naturally mutate over time, and this one is no exception. Since the virus was first identified a year ago, thousands of mutations have arisen. The vast majority of mutations are passengers and will have little impact, and every once in a while a virus strikes lucky by mutating in a way that helps it survive and reproduce. Now, say with the flu, this would happen quite a lot. That's why they would update flu shots, because the flu would have mutated that year. For example, it says here, taken from the Conversation article, talking about the flu year 2018-2019. It says the 2018-2019 season has been unusual, though, because the flu came in 2 waves. One that peaked at the end of December and a second that peaked in early March. The 2 peaks were caused by 2 different strains of the flu virus. And the protection given by vaccination early in the season may have waned by the time the second strain appeared. So that's 2 strains that were significant only 4 months apart. So as you can see, this would happen year in, year out and continuously. There are new strains and new mutations of viruses. So if we take Matt Hancock's 4th consideration, that there needs to be no new variants, then technically that's impossible, as there will always be new variants, new strains, new mutations. So effectively that means no new variant appearing equals lockdown forever. I think he needs to very much clarify what he is talking about. As always, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and come and join and subscribe hugotalks.com. I've got a lot of plans for this website, and I would like to keep in contact with you in case YouTube in the future delete this channel. See you later.